Well, here we are. It's Tuesday, and this is D. Some of you call me Reverend D. I heard that this week. And I'm here with Mita, who is the manager of Gender Health Awareness Wellness for DAP Health. But before we start our little talk, I went to see Dr. Sinclair in Beverly Hills last Wednesday. We're getting ready for the facial surgery. I know when you're gorgeous like me, you don't think you need it, but he thinks I need just a little work since I'm going to be 74 next week. Hard for me to believe that. But one of the interesting things for me is I was walking down Wilshire Boulevard to go to Robertson to meet a friend for lunch. And, you know, you always hear about women getting the cat calls and the whistles. So I'm walking down the street, and there's these construction workers a little ways ahead of me, and a couple of them whistled. And I thought, okay, it was different because as a man, you don't get that, right? And what was really interesting is one of the happy Hispanic men, he goes to the group, Mita, Mita, Mita. And he wanted to make sure that the dirt was off the sidewalk because he didn't want the lady to have to step down in the street to
walk around
to walk around the dirt. So that was kind of interesting. But what I also am finding is this. I've got a doctorate. I'm educated. And yet when I walk into a room, and I don't want to slam men, but I walk into a room, somehow they think I don't have a brain. And so I want to talk about that a little bit, about their perception that just because you're a woman, whether it's a trans woman or a woman, it doesn't matter what woman, you don't have a brain. And I want to talk a little bit about trans women my age.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I've thought about this for a long time, shelved it. And as one of my friends, as my friend I had lunch with last week, said to me, he said, I haven't seen you in several years because the last time, he's an entertainer friend, he said we raised money for the hurricanes in Puerto Rico. He said, I've known you so long. He said, now all the parts of the puzzle are coming together. He said, every single part of the puzzle that's missing that I couldn't put together for all the years, he said, right now, seeing you right in front of me is all coming together.
It all makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. And interesting for me, and I'm going to shut up because I want you to talk, is when I started this journey a little bit, I've always, for years, for almost all my life, I've said there's two of me in one body. There's a male, there's a female, all in one body. I've never felt gay, never felt straight per se, whatever that feeling is, but always realized there was two of me. Well, as I'm taking this journey more, it feels like that there's one whole, but there's been two halves. And it feels like it's all coming together into one wholeness.
Yeah.
So the floor is yours on any of those subjects I just mentioned.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
So the first thing, the trans women of your age, right?
Yes.
Any trans folks, but specifically trans women of your age, you've lived a whole life socialized this way or that way, right? It's either, as a man, as a straight man, as a gay man, like,
as a femme man.
Yeah, as a sissy,
Yeah.
any of these things. And what people end up doing is putting that part of themselves in this box and tucking it away, right? And then as soon as some life event happens, like with most people, there's some life event. They get a divorce, somebody dies, like a spouse or somebody, or they just get some switch flipped and they're like, you know what, I'm tired of living this way. Um, I think you said at some point you had the realization I might as well just decide not to care anymore and live the rest of my life in drag. And then a couple weeks or months later, you thought more on that and realized that it wasn't just drag that you needed, right? So something happens, and like this, the box opens, the spigot opens, and a lot of people see these transitions with these older women to go super fast, but it's really been happening for decades inside. Because the hardest part of all of our transitions and our journeys is the part inside. I changed my name in the 90s when I was a late teen because my name was too masculine. I knew I wasn't a woman, but we didn't have language for non-binary back then, right? And then I lived as a man for 20-something years until after a divorce, and, you know, telling people that, you know, when I was doing my spiritual work, I wore dresses and skirts because that was where my energy came from when I was doing my energy work, right? But really it was just, and I told people I was, you know, two parts. And it was like, oh no, wait, but I am two parts because I'm non-binary. I'm in the middle. And that's been my whole life, right? But, you know, so in my late 30s, early 40s was when I came out. And everybody said it happened overnight. So it's the same thing. It's, we sat on these things and we held them, but we were really doing the work on the inside. Where a lot of the younger folks come out and kind of go through kind of the physical changes and the internal changes at the same time.
Now, people ask me a lot on this. Doesn't there have to be years of therapy? Don't you have to dress for a year or two before any hormones or any surgeries needed? A couple of people said, oh my God, it's like you're on the fast track to this, that you're just thrown in and here you go. And while I've thought about it all these time, like we're talking, they're right in the extent that it's like one day it's like, okay, we're going for this, here we go.
Well, so all of those things that you mentioned are archaic, old-fashioned forms of gatekeeping that the medical community did to keep people in our community from living their whole selves.
Okay.
So the current standards of care from WPATH, which is the World Association for Trans Health Professionals, is informed consent. You still will need a letter from a therapist, a letter of support from a therapist to have surgeries, but that letter essentially is saying this person has a diagnosis of gender dysphoria and that they are of sound mind to make informed consent. And then you need a letter from your doctor that says this person's healthy enough to survive surgery and they also have this diagnosis. And the diagnosis of gender dysphoria, the hallmark is that there is a marked incongruence of your gender identity versus your gender assigned at birth. And all that means is that you notice that there's a difference and that you have some kind of distress between your gender identity and your gender at birth.
So we're actually talking, in reality, I've had over 70 years of stress.
Yes.
And distress on it. And the the drug usage
Mm-hmm.
and the suicide attempts
And some of the risky sexual behavior.
and the very sexual risky behavior was all inclusive of that because
I know that was my story too. But so, and you've read and you've asked questions of health professionals, so you are informed on these procedures. So it's just informed consent now. They're not, the medical community now is trying to set up to not get in people's way.
now I'm glad I'm glad you say that because medical care for most transgender people, unless they live in Palm Springs, um, let's just pick a place. If they lived in Ames, Iowa, let's say, or Boise, Idaho,
Winston-Salem.
Winston-Salem, okay, Winston, okay, is not the same,
No.
and the stigma that one gets. Now, when I go out in the daytime like this, shopping, I get looks, but they're not the looks of transgender looks, if I can put it that way. They're the looks of, oh my God, look at her.
She's fabulous.
She's fabulous. Somebody stopped the other day when I'd gone to see my therapist, and I was dressed, and then my friend Paul and I went to dinner, and we went shopping. On the way, somebody came. They said, "Obviously, you're a model. Where do you model?" And I get that out and about,
Yeah.
but somebody that is transgender woman that doesn't look quite as 6'3", let's say 6'4", broader shoulders, isn't going to get that.
No.
So even the stigma going into the health community still gets stigmatized.
Oh, daily. And especially, folks of different body types and sizes. But, you talk about around the country, right? The stigma that people get walking in. We had somebody that just moved here recently that they had a provider in Oklahoma or northern Texas one that required them to see a therapist for 12 months to start them on hormones. And we were like, why? We'll start you on your first appointment.
Mm-hmm,
And they moved here. Once I talked to them more, they moved here because they got kicked out of their apartment because their landlord found out they were trans. So there's this kind of stigma within the health system, but then there's the stigma within society, and not knowing. But I love that when you go out, you get that because I think I commented to somebody the other day that you have very little leisure wear. Like every time I see you, you were just dressed to the nines, and you look fabulous. And now a lot of time I see you at DAP in the lobby,
right,
and you're working,
right, and I came from work today,
right. But you're not in a pair of yoga pants and a tank top.
No.
And I can't imagine you going shopping in that.
Well, yes and no. A couple weeks ago, it's Christmas time, I did this party for my volunteers, right? So I had this, you probably saw the picture, the red dress and the Christmas tree and everything. What you didn't see was dress comes off, pair of sweats come on, a baseball cap comes on, face is still there, and cleaning up from the party.
Oh, yeah.
What you didn't see was, look at these. Aren't these great nails? What you didn't see is last Saturday, a little bit of a face, not much, a little bit of a face, baseball cap, a pair of jeans, and a t-shirt having the nails done.
Fabulous.
You know, just a normal day, you know.
Yeah.
So for me, how do I say? I am glamorous.
You are.
That's just who I am. And that's not an act, that's not a show. But I'm just as glamorous from the inside out with the baseball cap.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to make this a long one, but what I want to say to you that are getting to see this is there's so much stigmatism out there, so much hatred out there. And all of us have repressed biases. And what if you can check in? Just check in with yourself of where's your bias when it comes to transgender folks? Where's your bias with people of color? Where's your bias with people who have less money than you? Where's your bias lie? And begin just to zero in on that and say, let me be a person of kindness. Let me be a person of happiness. Let me be a person that brings hope and triumph to people. And if you see somebody that looks like me, and they're 6'3" or 4", and they might have broader shoulders and don't look exactly, but you get that they're trans, what if you be a champion for them and go up and say something like, you know what? I support you on your fabulous journey of being all that you can be. That's it for this Tuesday. I'll see you next Tuesday when we're going to talk about some other part of my journey here. Thank you, Mita.
Thank you.